The first snow caught on the nails before it touched the ground. White gathered along the centurion's transverse crest, on the links of cut mail, and in the empty eye-holes of the dented helmet fixed to Armin's boar standard. By morning the armor looked inhabited. A Roman shape stood in the fort yard beneath the silver boar, silent and incomplete, while men passing it tried not to search the unit marks for friends. Rufus would not burn it. Gaius wanted the thing outside the walls, calling it an enemy charm. Livia wanted every nail, strap, cut, and stamped plate copied before anything moved. Cassian wanted names, so the standard remained under guard beside the headquarters building. Snow covered the message hanging beneath it, but I could still see the words I had read at the ferry. Iron holds men, fear holds Rome. Armin had chosen his season well. The river skinned over at the edges. Roads became troughs of brown mud by noon and ridges of frozen earth at night. An army could not easily march, but hunger could. Rumor required no boots. For 7 days I saw the fort from an infirmary cot. The surgeon, Galen, not the famous physician, merely an angry man cursed with the same name, opened the hip dressing each morning and found ordinary flesh doing ordinary work. The stretched closure stopped bleeding on the 2nd day. The 4 stitches in my upper arm held. Deep bruises along the ribs changed from black to yellow. My right wrist remained swollen inside a new splint, though I could bend 2 fingers without fire running to the elbow. The scalp cut stayed shut. The throat bruise faded. Sleep came in ugly pieces and never felt sufficient. My left eye took longest. The bleeding stopped after 3 days. Purple shadows still floated low in the sight whenever I looked towards snow or flame. Galen counted 7 more days from the last blood and forbade eagle sight through all of them. Not even if the system offers you wisdom about my bad temper, he said. It has no number for that. Then it is incomplete. Level 9 did not hurry him. Vitality 12 did not pull thread from skin or mend a ligament in one bright pulse. The body closed by warmth, food, stillness, and time. Food was already becoming the uncertain part. As acting optio under Rufus, I received reports at the cot because Rufus believed a title should make inconvenience flow toward its owner. The appointment remained provisional and revocable. It gave me no independent campaign authority. It did give me the broken mixed detachment from the ferry whenever Rufus was present to issue the orders I carried. Every morning Secundus brought the guard tablet. Fort custody remained 30 hostile captives, 3 Roman military detainees, and Vibius, the critically wounded witness, 34 people under the stone store register. Odo and Baran were still treated separately and were not folded into it. No prisoner had escaped, died, or changed status since the ferry. That mattered because winter reduced every person to a mouth before it reduced anyone to a legal category. Every afternoon Livia brought the evidence tablet. The main chest remained under 3 seals. The first copy stayed in the uphill store. The second had passed south beyond the ferry with its escort. Vibius's bark dispatch, the burial cloth fraud, private remittances, the 2 letters marking Armin's channel, Drusus's hornwax, Erdo's signal strip, and the deserter names were all present. Caldus remained missing. The Roman who had authorized payments into Armin's informant route remained unknown. Gaius visited once. He stood beside my cot wearing a winter cloak whose red border had never met mud. You understand that acting appointments end when emergencies end. I understand what Rufus said. I made the appointment at Rufus's request. The pause between us was small and cold. Then he smiled. Recover quickly, Varro. This fort has begun mistaking survival for virtue. He left a cup of heated wine that I did not drink. Tiro arrived after him, carrying Marcellus's damaged signum. The pole was wrapped in leather where fire and axe had scarred it. Its wreath leaned. 2 metal discs were missing. Secundus had allowed Tiro to clean it because the surviving signifer still lacked 3 fingers and could not close his hand in winter. You have been promoted to washer of dead men's bronze, I asked. Temporary, revocable, and subject to correction. He had learned Rufus's phrasing too well. Tiro's own stitched arm was healing. He could lift a horn again, though not hold it long. He set the signum against the wall where I could see it. Men look at Armin's pole, he said, even when they pretend they do not. Ours is locked in the equipment room, because it belongs to a dead century. It belongs to the men left from it. 14 of us had survived the first broken line. Fewer still stood fit. The signum had been carried south into the fort, through the raid, and to the ferry. It looked damaged because we were damaged. Hiding it did not make either of us whole. Ask Secundus to place it in the drill yard, I said. I did, and he told me an apprentice potter does not decide where a standard stands. That sounds like him. So I came to the acting optio who commands nothing without Rufus. That also sounded like him. Rufus approved the request that evening. He did not approve Tiro as bearer. A standard is not a signal flag, he said beside my bed. It is where a line finds itself. The bearer does not climb roofs, crawl drains, or invent a horn call somewhere everyone must turn to hear it. Tiro accepted the refusal with his jaw tight. Rufus looked at him. You want the honor? I want the men to stop measuring our bronze against the boar. Better answer, still no. He assigned the signum to Flaccus, whose forehead stitches had come out but whose dizziness had not entirely left. Flaccus laughed until Galen threatened to put him in the next cot. That night the wind shifted north. Snow hissed through every crack in the shutters. Somewhere beyond the wall, wolves, or men with good throats, answered one another on the ridge. At dawn, the quartermaster's clerk reduced the bread issue, not by much, 1 finger's width from each loaf. A small absence multiplied by more than 600 soldiers, wounded people, workers, civilians still sheltering from the ferry villages, prisoners and separately treated men. The missing bread did not look like sabotage. It looked like winter. Livia weighed mine on Galen's medicine scale. This loaf was entered at full measure, she said. The snow outside deepened. The armor on the boar standard watched the yard, and the fort began to eat its walls. Cassian began my drill before Galen allowed me to stand. He put a broken shield rim across my knees and made me move it with the left hand. No weight, no opponent. Catch, turn, feet imagined beneath the blanket. You are teaching a wounded man to fight furniture, I said. I am teaching an acting optio how much of shield hook he has been wasting. At the ferry, I had caught rims, poles, levers, and pressure. The echo offered a golden suggestion whenever the proper shape entered reach. Practiced rank had made that suggestion reliable. Cassian found every place around it where I still relied on strength. Again, I turned the rim. Your shoulder rose, because the edge catches, because you fought the edge. Move the feet. My feet are in bed. Then they should finally obey. His own leg remained wrapped behind the knee. Fever had gone. The wound had begun to close, but he walked with a staff and refused the word limp. He could not demonstrate quickly, so he demonstrated without mercy. The shield edge touched my forearm at a new angle each time. I learned to feel the line of pressure before the gold appeared. Tiro held the rim when Cassian tired. Flaccus took a turn and deliberately pulled at the wrong instant. Hanno brought a wicker shield, softer and more dangerous because it bent. Prisca sent an old ferry buckler with half the hide missing. Cassian wanted every bad edge the fort possessed. On the 10th day, Galen examined my eye in morning light. No fresh blood. The purple shadow had shrunk to a thumbprint low and left. He held up fingers, moved them, covered one eye and then the other. The ban ends at sunset, he said. That is permission to use eagle sight briefly, not permission to be a fool continuously. I can drill with a light shield, no impact, no falls, no spear line. Your wrist remains weak and the hip scar will pull. Your ribs will tell you when you lie. Cassian had me in the yard before sunset. Snow lay packed hard around the practice posts. Flaccus planted Marcellus's signum beside the weapon rack. Men noticed. Some touched 2 fingers to the damaged pole before joining their files. Across the yard, Armin's boar standard stood under its guard. Roman armor whitened at the shoulders. My first standing shield hook ended with me seated in snow. Cassian had not attacked. He pressed his wicker rim against mine and changed direction. I tried to follow with my arm. The healed hip scar tightened. The weak right wrist came up by instinct. The ribs seized. My feet crossed and the ground finished the correction. Tiro offered a hand. "Do that in a line," Cassian said, "and the man behind you trips over an optio." I stood without Tiro's hand. Again. Over the next 2 weeks, mud froze into ruts and 6 recruits brought 6 concealed instructions: pull late, release early, drop the shield, crowd the hip, strike instead of holding, or step on my foot. I failed against each. Nazo dropped his shield. I followed it with my eyes. Cassian tapped my throat. "Shield hook is not worship of shields," he said. Buckets, doors, rails, and snow shovels followed until I understood that catching an edge did not mean owning the person behind it. No system message appeared. During those same days, the bread issue shrank again. The official stores said it should not. The granaries held enough wheat for 41 days at full ration, even after counting the 34 in custody. Odo and Baran under separate treatment, ferrymen's families temporarily sheltered inside, and the draft animals' fodder on a different ledger. Livia insisted on counting actual mouths. The acting quartermaster insisted that civilians were provincial responsibility, and prisoners ate from punitive allowance. Grain did not recognize either distinction. Livia took 3 soldiers, 2 civilian millers, and me to the North Granary when Galen permitted walking. The building smelled of dust and mouse droppings. Sealed bins rose shoulder high. Wax marks appeared intact. A miller named Sava struck one bin with a mallet. The sound was hollow near the floor. We opened it under witnesses. Wheat filled the top 2 feet. Beneath lay bundled reeds packed tight enough to support the grain. The clerk crossed himself in 3 different religious habits. Livia did not look surprised. Weigh the wheat, then the reeds. Record both. 6 bins had been false-bottomed. The shortage was not a finger's width, it was 9 days. Gaius arrived before the weighing ended. He blamed Caldus at once. The missing quartermaster had every key, he said. Livia lifted a wax tablet. These bins were closed after Caldus fled. The new seals carry your household stamp. My staff secured compromised stores. With reeds inside? His face changed only around the eyes. "If you intend an accusation, make it before the commander. I intend an inventory." That frightened him more. An accusation could be answered by rank. Empty grain had to be fed. Rufus placed the granaries under doubled guard. He ordered me to inspect the wall stores and cookhouse issues, not as an investigator, but as an optio checking whether the line could remain fed. I carried his authority in writing. Livia carried scales. Tiro carried a tally cord because he remembered sequences better than the clerks who despised him. By dusk, we had found cut oil in lamp jars, damp salt hidden beneath dry sacks, and winter cloaks counted twice, once in a locked shed and once as if already issued. The theft had shape. Grain and wool had not vanished randomly. Someone had sold the best stores before snow closed the road, then built paper walls behind the absence. Outside, the wind drove harder. A sentry at the North Tower lost feeling in 2 fingers. Another reported black shields moving among the pines, but ordinary scouts found only branches stripped of snow. I did not use eagle sight. Hidden men remained hidden. The power could name a visible target, not prove whether a forest contained one. Rufus ordered more patrols, smaller fires, and snow swept along the inner wall so footprints would show. Then he sent me back to Cassian. "Stores decide how long we stand," he said. "Drill decides what happens when standing ends." Cassian met me with 2 shields and a grin I distrusted. "The bad edge today," he said, "is yours. A Roman fort is built to make order visible. Roads cross straight. Ditches keep their proper distance. Tents or barracks face the same way. Grain enters through scales, weapons through lists, men through gates, and waste through channels. In summer, the arrangement feels like strength. Winter showed how much order depended on dry ink. Livia's inventory spread from the granaries into every place numbers could hide. She did not accuse Gaius in whispers. She assembled the commander, Rufus, the pay clerks, 2 civilian suppliers, the senior miller, and 3 soldiers selected by lot. Then she opened each account in front of them. The best wheat had left by wagon 12 days before the first heavy snow. The movement tablet called it spoiled grain sent for disposal. Sava produced a handful bought in a market south of the ferry, clean and marked with our granary's blue chalk. 400 winter cloaks had supposedly been issued to detachments that together contained 260 men. Lamp oil had been sold to a bathhouse contractor through a cousin of Gaius's steward. Salt weights had been made honest with stones at the bottom of the pans. Caldus's hand appeared on the early entries. Gaius's household stamp closed the later bins. His steward's name linked the wagons to the buyers. Gaius stood through the recitation without interrupting. When Livia finished, he asked the commander for leave to answer. I authorized emergency liquidation of stores Caldus reported tainted, he said. The proceeds were meant to purchase fresh supply before winter. Caldus absconded with part of that silver. My steward continued transactions to preserve the fort's credit. If seals were misused, I am the officer who discovered their misuse by bringing trusted household men into a corrupt office. It was an elegant defense. Every stolen sack became a failed rescue. Every relative became a trusted remedy. Caldus, absent and already stained by treason, could carry any weight placed upon him. Livia set down one narrow tablet. Your steward sent 2 payments to your estate creditor on the same days the grain wagons moved. The room went still. Gaius looked at the tablet, then at her. Private money passed through the same factor. That is not proof the money was identical. No, it proves opportunity, benefit, concealment, and a trail a magistrate can follow. A magistrate appointed by men who know my family. There lay his survival. He did not deny the protection, he displayed it. The fort commander removed Gaius from control of stores, contracts, and seals pending review. He impounded the steward's property and sent copies of Livia's findings south by 2 routes. He did not arrest a tribune from a senatorial family on evidence that could be blamed upon a fugitive quartermaster. Gaius retained rank, cavalry clients, and the right to stand in councils where men discussed our lives. Outside headquarters, Tiro said, he stole food and kept his sword. Livia pulled her hood against the snow. He kept more than that. He kept the story in which arresting him during a siege would endanger Rome. Is it true? Enough of it is true to be useful. That was politics as I was learning it, not a lie replacing fact, but a wall built from selected stones. The 9 missing days could not be argued back into bins. Rufus cut adult rations by 1/6, officer and recruit alike. The 34 in custody received the same reduced bread, with broth for the badly wounded. Odo and Beran stayed on Galen's separate medical issue. Mara and Sava counted civilian mouths. Livia bought 3 days of barley from a brewer, but drifting snow defeated the first farm sledges. Wet cloaks froze on sentries. Snow halved the north ditch overnight. Enemy horns gave old Roman relief calls from 3 ridges, and a slaughtered mule appeared with "Feed your wall" cut into its harness. Men looked toward the boar whenever bread was issued, so I moved Marcellus's signum beside the cookhouse. 3 weeks of ordinary healing put my wrist in a leather wrap and removed the arm stitches. The hip scar stayed tender. Ribs hurt only on deep breaths, and the purple thumbprint remained in my eye. Cassian built impact from wicker to wood. 3 recruits passed pressure through one another while I learned to feel the hidden rear foot. At sunset, I caught the point where their structure depended on that foot and turned only enough. 3 men broke alignment. Mine held. Worth keeping, Cassian said. No message came yet. That night, someone opened the small South grain store from inside. The guard heard the hinge and found the door ajar. 2 sacks were gone. Snow showed no tracks leading away, only the churn of the evening ration line. The lock bore no damage. The key had never left the duty clerk's belt. Lock brakes stirred when I examined the latch, offering ways fingers might force a wrist or joint. It knew nothing about copied keys. Tiro crouched beside the threshold. The snow was swept after last watch. It is swept every watch. Not there. He pointed beneath the door, where a thin ridge lay inside rather than out. Someone opened it before the snow began and left it almost closed. Wind covered the gap. The hinge only cried tonight when the wood shrank. The sacks had been removed before the guard was posted. Livia checked the issue tablet. Both were already recorded as fed to prisoners. Secundus brought every bowl and remaining loaf from the stone store. The captives had received no extra grain. The false issue was a cover. Who wrote it? I asked. A junior clerk named Minuk, Livia said. He disappeared from his bunk an hour ago. The fort gates had not opened. Rufus sounded internal assembly. Men searched lofts, drains, stables, sheds, wall stairs, and empty carts. They found Minuk's cloak folded beneath his blanket. They found a copied store key in an ash pit. They did not find Minuk. 600 people stood within timber and earth. One clerk had vanished among them. Snow pressed against the gates. Horns answered from the ridge. 9 days of grain were missing from the bins. 2 more sacks had vanished into the fort itself, and someone inside knew which false account would make hungry Romans blame prisoners first. The first attempt to kill Tiro came during a drill. It looked like an accident because standards make accidents easy. A pole taller than a man has weight at the top and leverage at the bottom. Turn too late and it cracks a skull. Plant it badly and a rush drives the butt through your foot. Flaccus carried Marcellus's signum across the packed yard. Tiro supported the lower grip. I marched behind the rear file, where an optio belonged. Cassian stood on a platform calling changes while Rufus watched from the headquarters steps. Wheel right, the line turned. Tiro saw the movement first and shifted under the pole. Flaccus followed. A practiced javelin flew from the rack behind them. No order had sent it. The blunt iron head struck the signum instead of Tiro's spine. Bronze discs rang. The pole pitched. Flaccus lost his grip as dizziness took him. Tiro caught the full weight with his healing arm, dropped to one knee and kept the signum upright. Men froze around him. "Close," Tiro shouted. "Not help, not my name. The line's need." The front rank closed around the standard before anyone found the thrower. I ran to the weapon rack. Footprints crossed everywhere. A leather throwing loop lay in mud, cut loose from a practiced spear. The javelin had been cast from behind stacked shields, perhaps by a hand no one saw, perhaps by a cord rigged to the rack. Rufus ordered the gates barred and the yard searched. Cassian took the signum from Tiro only after the formation settled. Flaccus sat against the rack, white with shame. "I dropped it." "You became ill," Tiro said. "I dropped it." Rufus heard both. He looked at the pole, the dent in its silver crescent, and the slight recruit who had caught it. "Flaccus," he said, "you carried Marcellus out of the broken field and through 3 fights. You will not wait for the ground to dismiss you. Transfer the standard." Flaccus shut his eyes once. Then he stood, faced Tiro, and placed the leather grip in his hands. "Tiro, son of Darus," Rufus said, "you bear the signum of the surviving detachment while this winter command stands. You keep it visible, you keep it upright, you do not leave it to chase glory, friends, or me." Tiro swallowed. "Yes, Centurion. You carry signals only when another man carries the pole. Standards do not run messages. Yes, Centurion." Rufus pointed at me. "And he does not get to save you by taking it." I had not spoken. That is why I said it now. The appointment had no trumpet, no polished silver appeared. Tiro wrapped his hands around damaged leather while snow melted into his hair. Men struck shield rims once, an uneven sound that became one beat by the end. Across the yard, Roman armor hung on the boar. Tiro planted our signum facing it. The cut throwing cord carried lamp oil and fine red wool from the cloaks counted twice in Gaius's ledger. Their rare dye came through his family's factor. His steward had vanished before the commander impounded an empty room. Gaius called the thread common. Livia entered its source under witnesses. Sight could not identify the unseen thrower, so I kept it closed. We found where the missing grain had gone near midnight. Warmth revealed it. Snow over an abandoned bath drain had sagged, though no fire burned nearby. Engineers lifted the grate. A tunnel no wider than shoulders ran beneath the old bathhouse toward the south wall. It had once carried hot wastewater beyond the ditch. Repairs years earlier had sealed the outer end with timber and packed clay. Someone had reopened the inner channel and stored grain sacks inside, keeping them dry in the warm earth. The 2 sacks lay there with 6 bundles of red-lined cloaks, jars of lamp oil, a coil of rope, 3 narrow ladders, iron hooks, and a pot of black paint. Not theft for hunger, preparation. The outer seal had been dug thin. One hard strike from beyond would open a passage into the fort. Rufus did not close it immediately. He sent engineers outside by the west gate under shields to inspect the ditch from a distance. Snow had been piled deep along the south wall despite our clearing teams. The drain mouth was hidden beneath it. Tracks vanished in wind. Minuk prepared stores and entrance, Livia said. The false prisoner issue hid the grain. The duplicated cloaks supplied whoever entered, or supplied men leaving to join them, Secundus said. The distinction changed the shape of the danger. An enemy outside might breach. Paid Romans inside might put on unissued cloaks, blacken shields, and become a force whose numbers no guard could know. Rufus ordered the tunnel watched from the bathhouse without disturbing the cache. Only 8 people knew. The commander, Rufus, Secundus, Livia, Tiro, Cassian, the chief engineer, and me. Gaius was not told. That was not my decision. Rufus made it after the commander approved. Gaius retains rank, the commander said. He does not retain trust over stores. He will learn we are watching, I said. He may. Then whoever uses the drain must choose another way. Rufus tapped the fort plan. We cannot defend a secret by pretending it is our only weakness. We mapped likely targets: South Gate Bar, Granary, Prison Store, Headquarters and Evidence Chest. Armin's standard in the yard might be a signal point or merely bait. The armor's unit marks had already spread fear. A breach that freed 30 hostile captives could turn a small entry into collapse. Secundus doubled the stone store guard with men selected from Marcellus's survivors. Livia moved the main evidence chest from its known room to the infirmary cellar, under Galen's protests, leaving sealed stone in the old chest so its weight looked right. The first copy remained uphill. The second was already south. Vibius was moved 1 room deeper, but stayed within registered custody, too ill to question. Odo and Beron remained where Galen treated them. Tiro slept beside the signum in the headquarters porch. I slept nowhere for more than an hour. The healed hip scar ached in cold. My wrist stiffened. Purple shadow drifted at the edge of every lamp. The system panel remained available without sight. Lucius Varro, level 9. Experience 0 of 2,700. Strength 11. Endurance 13. Agility 12. Vitality 12. Intelligence 14. Shield hook practiced. Arrow step novice. Lock break novice. 3 of 3 echo slots filled. Nothing in those numbers said when the wall would open. For 4 nights, no one touched the drain. On the 5th, fresh snow buried the south road. On the 6th, the sky cleared and cold sharpened until spit froze against timber. Men began to believe we had frightened the plan away. Cassian did not. He set me against 5 shields in darkness, 1 lamp behind my back. Tiro held the signum, where its few bronze pieces caught the light. The recruits pressed from changing angles. Cassian called no start. A rim struck mine. I caught, stepped, and turned the pressure into the next shield. The line opened 1 body's width. I stopped there instead of chasing the man I had displaced. Again, Cassian said. We continued until dawn silvered the wall. Then he looked at my feet, not the shield. Closer, he said. Winter made every command an argument about heat. Rufus tore apart my first watch schedule because I froze the strongest men on towers, then expected them to fight at relief. He paired veterans with recruits, rotated strength through warmth, and made runners walk their routes blindfolded. Tiro taught each relay the new horns while Flaccus held the signum during signal practice. Prisca's sledges reached hill farms and returned with barley, turnips, and 2 goats, restoring 3 days. Black boar tracks followed their outward trail. Livia found 2 more days by ending private kitchen drawers. Gaius surrendered his cookhouse key and called it theatre. Hungry soldiers enjoy theatre when it has stew, Cassian said. His political position hardened rather than collapsed. 2 cavalry officers signed statements that Gaius had ordered inspection of stores before Livia's audit, though the order bore a date scratched and rewritten. A courier reached the fort carrying a letter from a provincial governor thanking Gaius for decisive preservation of winter supply. The letter had been sent before the shortage was exposed. Its timing proved that someone south expected a favorable story. It also gave the commander reason to avoid a public rupture while enemies watched the walls. Livia read it twice. He prepared praise before he prepared food. "Can you prove the date?" I asked. "The courier can, the governor can, deny remembering." She sealed the letter with the other copies. The evidence against Gaius now stood separate from the Armin payment chain. His supply theft touched Caldus, his steward, creditors, and buyers. The payments to informants still led toward an unknown Roman authorizer. Livia refused to join them merely because one villain would be convenient. That restraint mattered. Gaius was guilty of enough. We did not need to make him guilty of everything. The commander formally censured him for negligent seals and undisclosed conflict in the contracts. Restitution was demanded from his estate pending civil review. He remained tribune. His cavalry remained under his tactical authority when the commander assigned it. He attended councils with a colder face and more careful words. The fort ate barley bread. Cassian brought full shields into the south ditch. Hanno refused rim contact until pressure angled near a rut. Then I caught the lower corner and guided him past it. We repeated the exchange after work parties and sandbag circuits. Endurance 13 prolonged effort. It did not stop the wrist swelling, and Cassian ended each drill when the grip weakened. On the 8th night after we found the drain cache, a soldier named Lepidus failed to answer relief at the south tower. We found him awake, staring over the wall. His cloak was gone. So was one boot. He could not explain either absence. He remembered accepting a cup of hot water from a clerk. Minuk had brought it, he thought, though Minuk was missing. Galen smelled the cup and found bitter residue beneath the mint. Not enough to kill, enough to confuse a freezing man. Footprints led from the tower stair to the bathhouse and stopped. We opened the watched drain chamber. The grain sacks and cloaks remained. One ladder bundle had shifted by a handspan. Someone inside knew the cache was watched and had touched it anyway. Secundus wanted every clerk confined. Livia argued that mass confinement would pull trained record keepers from rations and watch while warning the guilty. Rufus chose pairs. No clerk moved alone, no hot drink reached a sentry except from the cookhouse under marked ladles, and relief passwords changed at each watch rather than daily. Tiro suggested the marks. Potteries used notches on handles to keep clay batches separate. Each watch received a ladle with a different cord knot. A man carrying the wrong one could not explain it as memory. Rufus adopted the method and credited him before the formation. Tiro's shoulders changed under the standard. He had always been brave in bursts. Now he had to remain visible when frightened. The pole prevented him from crouching behind taller shields. Men dressed, formed, ate, and marched by its position. He learned to plant it before helping a fallen man, to call another soldier rather than abandon the signum, and to trust that care could travel through a line. One afternoon I slipped on the wall stair as the hip scar seized. Tiro was 3 paces away. His hand moved toward me. Then he planted the standard and shouted, "Hanno." Hanno caught my harness. Tiro kept both hands on the pole. I laughed after the pain passed. Rufus finally taught you not to rescue me. No, he taught me to do it without losing everyone's direction. That answer stayed with me. On the 10th night, horns sounded west, then north, then east. Each gave a different Roman distress sequence. No signal came south. Rufus assembled the sentry in the yard. Gaius brought cavalry to the west gate. Scouts on the towers reported torches moving among trees. Snow began again, dry and fine. The drain watch saw nothing. We held until dawn. The torches withdrew. No attack came. Men slept through the following afternoon wherever they could sit. Reliefs grew slow. Tempers shortened. The enemy had spent fire and breath to make us spend readiness. At dusk, Cassian found me closing my eyes beside the signum. "He will not attack when you are afraid," he said. "When then? When fear becomes boring." Beyond the wall, the cold deepened. Inside, someone copied the new relief password before midnight. We caught Minnook through 2 missing dried figs. Galen dusted the infirmary shelf with ash, found a handprint, and followed tracks to a blood drain. Engineers opened a service channel to the old furnace. Minnook waited behind its wall with a clerk's knife, copied keys, red wool, a wax tablet, and feet blackened by cold. He tried to cut his throat. I caught his wrist. Lockbreak offered the joint, but his body was wedged against brick, and my right hand still lacked full strength. Hanno seized the elbow, while Galen struck the knife away with a fire shovel. Minnook bit through his lip and fought until Cassian pinned his legs with the staff. Alive, he became a problem for truth rather than burial. Galen treated the feet first. Rufus and Livia questioned him under witnesses. I watched hands and breath without opening sight, which could not reveal lies. Minnook admitted copying keys. He admitted false prisoner issues, moving grain to the drain, drugging Lepidus, rigging the practice javelin, and carrying horn sequences to a hollow tree outside before snow closed the gates. He denied intending to kill Tiro. "I meant to strike the pole," he said. "You cast iron at his spine," Rufus answered. "The sign was the target. The boar men said the small bearer was making your broken unit stand. They wanted the Roman sign down when they entered." Tiro heard that from the doorway. He did not move. "Who paid you?" Livia asked. "Caldus." "When?" "Before Vela. He said the fort would change masters by winter." "Who gave Caldus the silver?" Minnook looked toward Gaius's absent place as if the empty air carried rank. "I never saw." Livia placed the red wool before him. "These cloaks came through Gaius's steward. Caldus told me where the bundles were. Did the tribune know? I do not know." It would have been easy to hear fear as concealment. Livia did not press an answer into him. She asked dates, places, weights, phrases, and the names of men who might still be alive to contradict him. Minnook described the breach plan. The enemy would make 3 false demonstrations. We had already endured them. On the next clear night after heavy snow, white Main archers would shoot fire into the north barracks. Boar fighters would press the west gate. Those attacks were not meant to enter. While eyes turned away, 12 camp killers would open the old drain from outside. Minnook would guide them to the south gate, granary, stone store prison, and headquarters. Men already inside would wear the red-lined cloaks and blacken ordinary shields. Once the south gate opened, a larger force waiting in the ravine would rush it. "How many inside men?" Rufus asked. 5 besides me. Names. I knew only the steward. Your signal. Smoke from the bathhouse vent. Wet straw under oil. Dark by day, bitter by night. The wax tablet he carried held 4 scratched marks. Livia read them as store symbols. Sava read them as miller's weights. Tiro turned the tablet sideways. "They are wall towers," he said. "South, north, west, east. South is cut twice." Minnook stared at him. The plan had a timing change. The south mark doubled meant 2 knights, 2 horns, or 2 entry teams. Minnook claimed not to know which. Rufus took the confession to the commander. Gaius attended the council because his rank entitled him. When he heard the steward named, anger came easily. "My household has been infiltrated by Caldus's traitors," Livia answered. "Your household sold the grain that fed their cash and supplied the cloaks they meant to wear. Without my knowledge, with your debt paid. Are we trying a contract or defending a fort? The commander struck the table once, both and not in the same hour. Gaius offered his cavalry for the south gate and demanded the honor of crushing men who had corrupted his name. Rufus opposed placing all mobile reserve under an officer connected to the compromised stores. I expected Gaius to challenge him. Instead, Gaius said, "Give half to another captain. Divide the reserve. If my orders betray you, there will be witnesses with spears." It was a strong answer because refusal would look like fear of his usefulness. The commander accepted. Gaius retained 20 cavalry dismounted inside the south lane. Hanno held 12 auxiliaries opposite him. Rufus commanded the central reserve and my detachment. Secundus guarded the stone store. The main evidence chest stayed in the infirmary cellar. The decoy remained in headquarters. Tiro and the Signum would stand in the central yard where every threatened front could see them. We did not seal the drain. We rebuilt its inner chamber into a trap. Engineers weakened the floor above an old plunge basin, then covered it with reed matting and thin boards. A man walking the known safe edge could pass. Men rushing the center would fall waist-deep into cold mud and tangled net. We placed no spikes. Rufus wanted captives if possible, but more than mercy guided him. Dead infiltrators could not name the 5 inside men. Cassian drilled the interception. He could walk without the staff now, though cold made his damaged leg drag. He placed 12 recruits in the bathhouse channel with black cloth over shields. My job was not to beat them. I had to keep them pressed toward the weak floor while Hanno closed behind. First attempt, I hooked the lead shield and opened a path into the infirmary. Second, I turned him correctly, and his companion struck my weak wrist. Third, I broke their line, followed too far, and left Tiro isolated in the yard. Cassian hit my helmet with his staff. You keep thinking the useful opening belongs to you. Shield Hook wanted a local answer. Catch, turn, remove. An Optio needed the line after that answer. Where would the displaced man go? Who filled his place? What target became visible? Technique could create a door for either side. We practiced until the recruits knew our trap too well to test it honestly. Cassian changed them, then changed the entrance, then extinguished the lamps. He threw snow on the floor. He ordered one attacker to drop his shield and grapple. He had another retreat when hooked, drawing me over the weak boards. Lock break helped once against a single grip. Arrow step helped once when a thrown practice shaft crossed visible lamplight and firm floor existed to my right. Neither solved the room. Shield Hook mattered because shields filled the narrow channel, but it remained one tool inside Hanno's closure, the engineer's flaw, and Rufus's disposition. On our last pass, the lead recruit struck flat. I yielded half a pace. His second man pressed behind him. I caught the lower rim, turned the force across the channel, and used his shield to block the third. Hanno closed. Nobody crossed the safe edge. Tiro and the Signum remained visible through the bathhouse door. Gold warmed along my forearm, not bright like a level, but settled like a grip finely fitted to the hand. Shield Hook advanced, battle-ready. The words vanished. Cassian had seen only the movement. Again, he said. I did it again without the message. The second attempt was uglier. It still held. We waited 3 more nights. The first brought cloud, the second brought wind. On the third, the sky cleared so completely that stars looked cut into black iron. Snow reflected enough light to see the far lip of the ditch. At second watch, a bitter thread of smoke rose from the old bathhouse vent. Minuk was bound under guard in the stone store. None of us had lit it. One of the 5 inside men had sent the signal. The west horn sounded before anyone reached the bathhouse. 3 long notes, gate assault. A moment later, fire climbed above the north barracks. White main arrows had crossed the wall, trailing tow. They struck roof shingles, kept dry beneath snow, and flame ran under the white crust before men below understood that the roof was burning. The enemy followed Minuk's plan exactly enough to make every difference dangerous. Rufus stood in the central yard beneath Tiro's Signum. North fire parties. West wall holds without sortie. Varro, bathhouse with Hanno. Secundus stays on the prisoners. Gaius holds South Lane until he sees an enemy inside. He issued each order. I carried mine. The fort moved around the standard. Tiro had planted it in a socket engineers cut into a paving block. He kept one hand on the pole and blew the internal warning with the other, while Flaccus relayed the north roof sequence. Men who came from barracks half-dressed found bronze in the dark and formed by it. I took 18 legionaries and Hanno's 12 auxiliaries toward the old bathhouse. Cassian came with us. "You are reserve," I said. "I am a veteran walking in the same direction. Rufus ordered you central. He ordered me to correct your line." Cassian had found the only phrasing that made argument useless. He walked behind the last file, staff in one hand and shield in the other. Bitter smoke thickened near the bathhouse. It did not come from the drain cache. A wet straw pot burned inside a storage alcove. Whoever lit it had entered with a key, then left through another door. The drain floor remained untouched. "Signal early," Hanno said, or "signal false." Outside the west gate, boar horns roared. Timber struck timber once, heavy enough to shake snow from the parapet. Men on the wall shouted that a ram had entered the ditch. At the north barracks, roof tiles cracked in heat. The night filled with tasks meant to pull us apart. I posted Hanno behind the drain chamber, 8 legionaries at the infirmary passage, 6 by the south exit, and 4 with me inside the bathhouse. Cassian remained where he could see all 3 groups. Our lamps were hooded. Breath smoked around shield rims. Nothing entered. The second west impact came, then a third. Fire bells rang north. Tiro's signal sent 1 reserve file toward the barracks and kept 2 in the yard. The signum did not move. A sentry shouted from the south tower, "Men on the snow." Black shapes rose from the outer ditch, not at the drain mouth, 40 paces east of it, where wind-packed snow had raised the ditch nearly to the berm. Hooks struck the parapet. Short ladders followed. Minux's stored ladders had been bait or spare equipment. The enemy had made winter itself into the breach. "South wall," I called. My detachment turned toward the door. Cassian struck the last shield with his staff. "Bathhouse remains covered. How many?" If I emptied the trap, 12 camp killers could come behind us. If I stayed, climbers would take the wall. Hanno keeps the drain with 8 auxiliaries and 4 legionaries. Infirmary file stays. Everyone else south wall with me. Cassian, carry that to Rufus. I carry correction, not messages. He seized a passing runner and made the boy repeat my disposition, then sent him to Rufus. Cassian came with me. Gaius had already formed his dismounted cavalry in the south lane. Armor meant for horses was absent. They wore mail, shields, and heavy cloaks. Hanno's remaining 4 auxiliaries joined them from the gate tower. Above, defenders hacked at climbing hands while arrows crossed the moonlit yard. The south gate itself remained shut, its bar held. A black shield appeared on the parapet, then 2. A sentry fell inward with an axe in his shoulder. The first climber jumped down rather than wait for the stair, landed badly, and drove toward the gate mechanism. I met him below the wall. He wore a red-lined Roman cloak over dark mail. Black paint covered a scutum whose old legion mark still showed beneath it. His beard was white with frozen breath. He struck flat, knowing a rim offered shield hook. I received the blow on my center, let it slide, and cut at his forward thigh. He turned. The rim came free for one instant as he guarded low. Battle-ready guidance joined what Cassian had drilled. Catch low, step outside the injured hip, turn through his planted rear foot. The shield left his line. I did not follow it. Gaius's cavalryman struck the opening with a spear butt while I cut the attacker's axe wrist. He fell alive, still kicking, and 2 men bound him under the stair. Experience gained 900. Level 9 experience, 900 of 2700. More climbers came over. The second man attacked from the stair with a spear. Arrow step suggested a rightward move under the visible thrust. Snowmelt had frozen there. I shortened the step, let the spear glance along my shield, and closed. He released the shaft and grappled with both hands. Lockbreak found one wrist. The other arm pinned my shield to my ribs. A third climber dropped behind him. The counter could not answer two bodies and a blocked hip. Cassian drove his staff between the third man's ankles. Gaius struck the grappler across the jaw. Space opened. I turned the captured wrist, stepped beneath the elbow, and sent the spear fighter into the wall. He yielded only after Cassian's shield pinned him, and a cavalryman took his knife. The third climber tried to rise behind us. Cassian stamped the staff across his calves, while two cavalrymen rolled him face down and bound him beside the first. At the parapet, Tiro's horn called 1 long and 3 short. Ferry pattern. Enemy using Roman orders. A voice on the south tower had shouted, "Open for Rufus's reserve." Men near the gate bar hesitated. Then a soldier wearing a red-lined cloak ran from the granary lane and reached for the lifting chain. Inside man. Gaius saw him first. "Stop, Carbo." Carbo had served in the pay office. He carried no black shield. He looked Roman because he was. When a cavalryman blocked him, Carbo stabbed through the man's cheek and pulled the gate chain. I crossed the lane as an arrow struck my scutum. The impact numbed the recovering wrist. Carbo cut at the chainkeeper, kicked the lower bar loose, and shouted that Rufus had ordered the gate opened for a returning patrol. Tiro's horn answered from the yard with the false order warning again. Men stopped obeying familiar words and looked for the standard. Carbo seized a gate lever. I hooked it near his hands, but he released early. Old failure, expected now. I let the lever go and kept my feet. His knife came next. Cassian caught his arm on the staff. Gaius drove a shoulder into him from the other side. Carbo fell between us. He reached for poison at his neck. Livia, arriving with Secundus's clerk and 2 guards, stamped on the cord before his teeth found it. "Alive," she said. We bound him beside the first climber. A crash sounded from the bathhouse. The drain team had entered while the wall assault held us. Hanno's horn gave 2 short notes, then broke off. Rufus's runner reached me at the same instant. "Centurion says hold south wall. He sends central reserve to Hanno." I wanted to go. Hanno had followed my disposition into the trap. The system, lockbreak, and the practiced room all pulled at the mind's picture of what I could do there. Rufus's order held me at the gate. I stayed. That choice felt less heroic than running and more like command. Above us, defenders cut the last hook line. 5 attackers remained on the wall walk. Gaius led his cavalrymen up the stair. I took the lower gate file and rebuilt it around the bar. Cassian stood behind me, breathing hard, his injured leg trembling. "Correct?" I asked. For once, then the south horn blew twice. The ravine force was moving. Snow beyond the south gate turned black with men. They came from the ravine in 4 files, shields overhead against arrows, more than 100. The first carried axes and forked poles for the gate. The second carried bundles of brush to fill the ditch. The third wore black boar shields. The fourth remained beyond clear bow range around a tall man with a wolf jaw fixed to his helmet. They had expected the gate open. It was not. That brought us breaths, not safety. Carbo had lifted the lower bar before capture. The upper timber held alone. Outside axes struck the gate seam while forked poles reached through to tear at the remaining bar. Rufus came at a run from the central yard with 22 men. Tiro's signum moved behind him, carried at a measured pace. The bronze showed every wavering defender where the reserve had gone. Flaccus walked beside Tiro with horn and shield. "Bathhouse?" I asked. "Hanno holds," Rufus said. 8 entered the drain. Floor took 5. 3 crossed the safe edge because someone marked it. Losses? Unknown. Your wall. It was not praise. He needed a report. First wave, 7 over. The first jumper, the spear fighter, and the man Cassian tripped are bound under the stair. 2 died on the parapet. 2 went back outside. 5 from the next wave are fighting on the east walk. Carbo came from the granary lane. He is an inside man and held separately. Lower bar lifted. Enemy main force at gate, above 100. Rufus looked once and issued the defense. Second timber across the gate. Archer's north tower angles south. Boiling water, not oil. Varro holds lower lane and stops the forks. Tiro plants 20 paces back. Nobody pursues through an opening. The gate shook. Engineers carried a replacement beam from the repair shed. It was too long for the sockets. Cotter, his ferry wound still limiting one arm, came with a saw and 4 carpenters. They cut while axes outside worked faster. A forked pole caught the upper bar chain and pulled. The beam rose a finger. I put shields beneath the gate gallery. Men above poured kettles of boiling water through murder holes. Steam burst into the snow. Screams followed, but the poles kept working. "Hook the hooks," Cassian said. Our spear shafts could not reach through the narrow gate seam at a useful angle. Shield hook did not require a shield. It required an edge and pressure I could turn. When the next fork entered, I caught its inner prong with my scutum rim. 3 enemies pulled from outside. Their force dragged me toward the gate. I set my rear foot against the threshold stone, let the pull load, then turned down and sideways. The pole jammed beneath the lower hinge brace. Now, 2 legionaries struck the shaft with axes. It split. The outer men fell backward under their own pull. Archers on the tower shot into the opening in their roof of shields. 1 fork team broke. The gate remained closed. A second pole came high. Cassian saw it. His staff guided my rim upward before contact, saving the weak wrist from taking the full strike. I caught and turned. The pole tore free rather than jamming. A blade thrust through the seam and cut Cassian above the knee of his sound leg. He fell. I left the shield line for 1 step. His hand caught my ankle. Standard idiot. Tiro still stood 20 paces back. Men carried Cassian behind it. Galen's assistants reached him. I returned to the gate before the next impact. The Wolfjaw leader moved forward outside. He shouted in Latin, "Varo, Armin sends back your armor. Come claim the bodies that belonged inside it." He wanted my face near the gate. An arrow struck where a viewing slit would have shown it. I answered from behind timber. "You carried 100 men to fight a door, and you hide behind hungry slaves." His voice gave distance, close enough to command the 3rd file, too far for sight unless I climbed the tower and exposed myself. I did not need his level to know he was dangerous. The replacement beam slid into place. Outside, the enemy changed tactics. Brush bundles filled the ditch against the gate. Oil jars followed. They meant to burn the timber. Our water had been heated for men, not flame. North Barracks fire parties were still working. The cistern surface had frozen twice that week. Every bucket mattered. Livia arrived with a cookhouse column carrying barley mash. "Too thick to eat after someone dropped roof clay into it," she said, still wet. We poured dinner through the murder holes. Hot mash smothered oil and stuck burning tow to shields. The smell was terrible. The fire died. Hungry soldiers cheered the loss of their meal because the gate did not burn. The Wolfjaw leader ordered axes forward himself. I saw him only in pieces through the upper gallery. White jawbone, black mail, a long-bearded axe. He struck the gate where the lower bar had lifted, each blow opening the seam. Cotter shouted that the hinge post was splitting. The gate could hold the bars and still fall inward around them. Rufus chose before I offered. "Sallyport, 6 shields. Hit the axe team's side and return. Gaius commands. Varro carries my withdrawal call." The small south sallyport opened west of the main gate, hidden behind an angled earthwork. Gaius came down from the wall with blood on his cheek and 8 cavalrymen still standing. He took 6, added me, and looked at Rufus. "You trust the illegal commander outside the wall?" he asked. "I trust my Optio to sound the call I give him," Rufus said. "I trust you to want witnesses when you obey it." Gaius smiled without warmth. "Open." We entered the ditch. Cold struck harder outside. Snow reached my knees where enemy brush had not packed it. Arrow steps suggested paths beneath visible axe rises, but deep footing stole speed. Gaius's shields hit the flank of the gate team. 2 enemies fell before they understood Romans had appeared beside them. The Wolfjaw leader turned. He was larger than the gate glimpse promised. A Roman officer's belt circled his waist, plates dark with old blood. The bearded axe moved one-handed. He struck Gaius's shield and split the outer plies. I sounded Rufus's first call, 3 short, disrupt and return. Gaius heard. He lunged instead. His spear caught the leader under the arm, but did not enter mail. The leader hooked the shaft, pulled Gaius into the snow, and raised the axe. I could have sounded the withdrawal and left him. He had stolen winter grain. He had threatened me, used men, and survived behind birth. None of that made him helpless beneath an enemy blade. I caught the axe haft with my shield rim. The leader's strength tore my recovering wrist open with pain. Battle-ready guidance found the leverage, but his second hand joined the haft. I could not turn him by arm. I stepped through deep snow toward the planted forward leg, changed the angle, and dragged the axe head past Gaius's shoulder. Gaius rolled away. One cavalryman struck the leader's knee. Another shielded my exposed side. The leader released the axe and drew a long knife. He grappled me chest to chest where shield hook meant nothing. Lockbreak found his thumb, but not enough space to turn. He lifted me from my feet. Gaius came back with half a spear. He drove the broken end behind the leader's knee. The cavalryman struck again. I found ground, trapped the knife wrist, and opened the hold by turning beneath his elbow. The leader stumbled into the gate seam. Cotter's carpenters drove a repair spike through from inside. It did not strike him, but the hammer blow made him flinch. Gaius hit his temple with the spear socket. He fell, rose to one knee, and continued fighting. I used his dropped axe haft across the knife arm. 3 cavalrymen piled onto his shoulders. Gaius pressed the spear point to his throat. "Yield," Gaius said. The leader spat blood and tried once more to stand. His wounded knee failed. He released the knife. Experience gained, 800. Level 9. Experience 1,700 of 2,700. Rufus's second call sounded from inside. Return now. This time Gaius obeyed. We dragged the leader through the sallyport with 2 other captives. 4 of the 6 cavalrymen returned on their feet. 1 was carried alive with an axe cut through the calf. 1 remained dead in the ditch. We did not recover enemies defeated entirely by other hands. The main gate team pulled back from tower arrows, while their black shield file covered them. The south wall held. Then a red flare rose above the bathhouse. Not our signal. From the central yard came the crash of a heavy door opening. The breach had reached inside after all. The decoy evidence chest burned in headquarters. Smoke rolled from the doorway as we returned through the south lane. 2 guards lay outside, 1 dead and 1 breathing through a crushed mouth. The chest had been split. Sealed stones scattered across the floor where the attackers expected tablets and silver. The 3 drain infiltrators who crossed Hanno's trap had not gone to the granary or south gate. An inside guide led them through the infirmary service passage, around our posted file, and into headquarters by the records door. They wanted evidence. 1 died in the room with an arrow through his back. 1 fled toward the central yard carrying a torch and a stolen tablet box. The 3rd wore a Roman helmet and shouted orders among the smoke. Men followed him because his Latin was exact. Tiro did not. He stood with the signum planted beyond the well. Flaccus had the horn. When the false officer ordered the Central Reserve to open the prison store, Tiro lifted the signum sideways, the signal for broken command, and Flaccus sounded 1 long, 3 short. The reserve stopped. The infiltrator threw his torch at Tiro. Flaccus caught it on his shield. Tiro could not dodge without abandoning the pole, so he lowered the signum until the bronze wreath passed beneath the flame, then raised it again. Fire rolled across the paving behind him. Rufus shouted his name from the south lane. The true voice and visible standard joined. Men turned on the false officer. He cut 1 recruit and ran toward the stone store. Secundus had barred it from within. 30 hostile captives, 3 Roman detainees, and Vibius remained under his register. The door did not open. 2 inside collaborators attacked its outer guards instead, a pay clerk and 1 of Gaius's household cavalrymen. Red lining flashed beneath their cloaks. Gaius saw his man. Dento. The cavalryman hesitated at his patron's voice. That pause saved Secundus's second guard from a spear thrust. It also let the pay clerk unlock the outer bar. I reached the door as it opened a handspan. Pressure came from both sides. Captives within had heard battle and pushed toward possible escape. Secundus and his guards pushed outward to close. The clerk wedged the keyring into the hinge so the timber could not seat. I put my scutum into the gap, not to widen it, to feel where the pressure traveled. Shield hook guidance settled through the rim. Too many bodies to move, no single shield to own. But the clerk's forearm braced the keyring, and Dento's spear shaft held the upper edge. Secundus, ease on 3, I shouted. He could have refused a provisional optio. Rufus was 10 paces away and fighting the false officer. Secundus chose to trust the count. 1, 2, 3. The pressure inside released for one breath. Dento and the clerk lurched forward with their own force. I caught the spear shaft, turned it down, and drove the scutum edge into the clerk's forearm. The keyring fell. Secundus slammed the door. The bar dropped. 34 people remained inside. Dento swung at me. Gaius stepped between us. "Who bought you?" the tribune asked. Dento's face broke. "You did." The words struck harder than the sword. "I paid your wage. You paid nothing. Your steward said Caldus would. Then the steward fled, and the boar men fed my sons." Gaius's supply network had created the debt even if he had not ordered the breach. Patronage abandoned a man. The enemy purchased what remained. Dento attacked his patron. Gaius parried once. The false officer came from the side and drove Rufus into the well curb. I could not reach both. Tiro moved the standard, not away. He marched it 3 paces toward the stone store and planted it between the fights. The central reserve shifted with him. 2 men closed around Gaius. 3 went to Rufus. Flaccus sounded the closure. Dento's sword met 2 shields. Gaius struck the wrist and kicked his former man down. He did not kill him. The false officer seized Rufus around the throat and pulled him backward over the well. Lockbreak would have offered a hand if I reached him, but Tiro's movement had already brought 3 legionaries into contact. One caught the officer's belt, another pinned his knee. Rufus bit the gripping wrist and drove the vine staff under the elbow. The hold opened. I struck the officer's shield as he turned. He had taken it from a dead guard. Our rims met. He knew shield hook. Perhaps he had learned from Drusus, perhaps from watching me at the ferry. He released pressure, then returned it high to bait my catch. Battle ready did not mean obliged. I let the false opening pass. He cut low. I blocked. His rear foot slid on water spilled from the well. I caught only then, turned through the unstable step, and opened him to Rufus's staff. Rufus struck his sword hand. Tiro's reserve closed from the other side. The officer tried to leap into the well rather than be taken. Hanno, blood running from his scalp, arrived from the bathhouse and hooked the man's belt with the same boat hook he had carried since the ferry. We pulled him back alive. Experience gained, 1,000. Level 10 reached. Experience 0 of 3,400. 1 free stat point available. I chose Vitality. Strength 11. Endurance 13. Agility 12. Vitality 13. Intelligence 14. Warmth moved through me. It did not remove pain from the wrist, heal the reopened scrape at my hip scar, restore Cassian's cut leg, or wake the dead guard. It gave the body more reserve while the night continued. The headquarters infiltrator with the tablet box had reached the north lane. Fire parties there were fighting the last roof blaze. He wore a red cloak and called that the stone store had fallen. Men near the barracks began retreating toward the gate. Tiro lifted the signum above smoke. "Store holds," he shouted. "Rufus stands," his voice cracked. Flaccus repeated it through the horn. The retreat stopped. We counted the inside breach while Rufus restored dispositions. 8 drain attackers had entered. 5 fell into the plunge basin trap. 2 captured unwounded, 2 injured and captured, 1 dead after striking the basin edge. 3 crossed the marked safe path. 1 died in headquarters. The false officer was captured by the well, and the tablet carrier remained active near the north lane. 5 internal collaborators existed besides Minnock. Carbo and Dento were captured. The pay clerk lay alive beneath shields. 1 inside guide had led the drain team around the infirmary. 1 signaller had lit the bathhouse smoke. Neither was yet identified. The Count left 2 traitors loose, plus the tablet carrier. Outside attacks remained active at north and west. The South Ravine force had withdrawn from the gate, but had not left bow range. We had stopped the first penetration without resolving the camp. Rufus looked at me. Blood ran from his bitten lip and one sleeve. Recommendation. The word carried the boundary. He would decide. The loose guide knows the service passages. The signaller needs access to roofs or vents. Lock internal doors in sequence from south to north. Do not chase the tablet carrier into the barracks. Push him toward the north wall where firelight makes him visible. Tiro holds central. Secundus does not open for any voice but yours in person. What about west? Boar attack has struck without ladders or fire. It keeps men there. Once the inside cohort is closed, shift reserve through the central road where the standard shows it. Do not sortie. Gaius wiped Dento's blood from his cheek. And cavalry? Your remaining men hold the south lane under Rufus until the ravine force commits or leaves. Rufus asked the north fire captain through a runner. He asked Secundus whether the prison door could hold. Then he made the orders his own. As men moved, a thin golden circle appeared at the far edge of my vision. It was not eagle sight. I had not opened it. No level or name appeared. The circle seemed to touch the nearest shields, then broke before I focused on it. Inactive condition detected. Command. The word vanished. No strength passed into anyone. No fear eased. No formation tightened. Tiro's standard, Rufus's orders, drilled roots, and men choosing to obey did the work in front of me. I told no one. There was no time to name a door that had not opened. From the north lane came a scream. The tablet carrier had found Galen's assistant and taken him by the hair. Fire ruins the lie that darkness is uniform. Near the north barracks, flame made men visible in violent pieces, a hand above a shield, a cheek between helmet and scarf, a blade reflecting orange, then nothing beyond the next wall of smoke. Eagle Sight could have named the tablet carrier whenever he crossed clear view. It could not reveal the loose guide in a roof space, the signaller behind us, or an arrow traveling through black air. The purple thumbprint in my left vision widened whenever sparks crossed it. I left sight closed. The carrier held Galen's assistant, Pavo, in front of him and backed toward the north stair. The stolen tablet box hung from his shoulder. He wore no helmet now. Blood marked one ear where a roof tile had struck him. 6 Romans surrounded him at spear length, but could not thrust without reaching through Pavo. "Open the north postern," he said, "or the physician loses his boy." Pavo was 30 and had 2 children. Men called anyone beneath Galen's temper a boy. The postern led to the frozen drainage slope. White main archers waited beyond it. Opening would give the carrier escape and an enemy file entry. Tiro remained central with the signum. Rufus came behind me. Pavo's eyes moved toward the roof gutter. Meltwater dripped there from the fire. Beneath the gutter, ice spread across the paving. He stamped backward on the carrier's foot. The knife cut his scalp instead of throat. Pavo dropped his weight. The carrier dragged him, stepped onto the ice, and slipped. I used arrow step toward visible danger, one short lateral movement across clear stone. Novice guidance placed me beside the knife arm before the man recovered. The healing hip scar pulled but held. I trapped his thumb with lock break. His shoulder was free, footing poor, body position open. The grip turned. He released Pavo and kept the knife by changing hands. Lock break had solved one restraint, not defeated him. His second hand stabbed. Rufus's shield caught it. Pavo crawled away. 2 soldiers struck the carrier's legs. I hooked his stolen scutum as he reached for it, turned the rim, and took his support away. He fell beneath 3 shields and continued biting until Galen arrived and shoved a wooden gag between his teeth. Experience gained, 1,100. Level 10. Experience, 1,100 of 3,400. We recovered the tablet box. It held no evidence from Livia's chest, only headquarters duty list. chests and copies of the old relief sequence. The carrier had risked his cohort for records already made useless by Tiro's new signals. Pavo's scalp wound bled heavily and missed the artery. Galen treated him under a half-burned awning while insulting every soldier who tried to help without washing hands. The roof fire came under control. White main arrows slowed as our archers found their positions by flame. The enemy had initiated each front, but initiative was not endless. Their northern attack depended on fire spreading faster than our response. Wet barley sacks, snow shovels, and civilian bucket lines had denied it. Mara commanded the civilians there because no military officer had counted which roofs sheltered children. She moved families into the stone workshop, then turned their empty wash tubs into a water relay. Sava broke ice at the cistern with a mill hammer. Priska used ferry ropes to pull burning shingles down without sending men onto the roof. A runner came from the west wall. The ram had stopped. Enemy shields remained in the ditch, protecting men who dug rather than struck. Digging where? Rufus asked. Below the gate tower. The west wall stood on older earth. A drainage culvert passed beneath the tower, sealed after the first autumn rain. The attackers might be opening another route, or making us fear one while they withdrew. Rufus sent engineers to listen through the floor. He kept the gate defenders in place. We began the sequential internal lock. South Bathhouse, Infirmary Passage, Granary Lane, Headquarters Records Door, North Workshops. At each point, paired soldiers checked rooms, lofts, drains, and keys. Livia came with the account map. Tiro stayed central, so Flaccus carried messages and returned after each one. We found the inside guide in a flower loft. He was the acting quartermaster's senior scaleman, Varin. White dust covered his hair. A red-lined cloak lay beneath sacks. He had marked the safe edge of the bath trap with a smear of fish oil visible in low lamplight. He carried a list of doors, including the infirmary cellar. When we opened the loft, Varin threw a grain scoop and jumped through the floor hatch. Cassian blocked the ladder below. Varin landed on Cassian's wounded sound leg and drove him down. I reached them as Varin wound rope around Cassian's throat. One attacker, one hold, reachable wrist, but Varin's knee pinned Cassian's spine, and my approach came from behind his shoulder. Lockbreak offered no clean opening without twisting Cassian's neck. I struck Varin's forearm with the scutum boss. He tightened the rope. Hanno cut the loop with a small knife while Livia dropped a scale weight onto Varin's fingers from the loft. Cassian rolled. I caught Varin's freed wrist then, opened the elbow, and turned him onto the flour floor. He fought beneath us until Hanno bound both arms. Experience gained 1,000, level 10. Experience 2,100 of 3,400. Cassian sat against the wall, rubbing his throat. Blood soaked the bandage on his newer leg cut. "You were slow," he said. "The hold was wrong." "Good, you noticed before breaking my neck." Livia examined Varin's door list. He marked the old evidence room, then crossed it out. Someone told him the chest moved. Only 8 people had known initially. Gaius had learned during council that the real chest was elsewhere, but not the precise cellar. Galen's staff knew by carrying medicine past guards. Engineers knew the service passages. The loose signaller could be among them. Varin laughed through a split lip. "You moved bark and wax while the boar comes for the man who reads gold. Paper will not save him." Livia crouched. "Paper saved the grain count. The grain fed the soldiers who caught you." He looked away first. The internal cohort now left one collaborator loose, the signaller. Minuk, Carbo, Dento, the pay clerk, and Varin accounted for 5 named inside men, but Minuk had said 5 besides himself. That meant 1 more beyond those 4 captured collaborators. The signaller could still open a door or misdirect relief. At the west gate, digging stopped. Silence there worried Rufus more than the ram. He shifted 6 central men west under Tiro's visible signal, then another 6 when the North Fire Captain reported secure roofs. He did not strip south. Gaius remained there with 14 cavalrymen and a gate that had nearly fallen. The wolf-jaw prisoner gave his name as Ragnan. He refused every other question. Then a horn sounded from beyond the south ravine. One long, two short, our new signal for Central Reserve to west. Only Tiro, Rufus, Flaccus, and the watch leaders should have known it. The loose signaler had carried the pattern outside after we changed it. Tiro did not answer. He lifted the signum and dipped it once. Hold all positions. The enemy horn repeated. Gaius's cavalrymen looked toward the central yard. He held them where Rufus had ordered. A third call came, closer. Shapes rose again beyond the south ditch. This time they carried Roman shields without paint and shouted the names of our wounded patrols. The armor nailed to Armin's standard had given the enemy unit marks. Perhaps living captives had given names. "Open," a voice called. Second scout file returning. White mane behind us. One man limped ahead of the rest in Roman mail. His face was bloodied. He might have been a captive forced to lead them. He might have been the signaler returning. He might have been exactly what he claimed. Gaius looked to Rufus across the yard. Rufus looked at me. Visible facts. No gate opening. Drop ropes for one unarmed man between walls. Make him remove belt, cloak, helmet, and mail before approach. Cover the group with archers. Ask names from a roster they have not seen. Rufus issued it. The limping man refused to remove the cloak. An arrow from behind struck him in the back. The force in the ravine charged over his body. The south assault returned with ladders wide enough to bridge the ditch. They laid two across snow and brush, making narrow roads to the gate. Archers covered them from the ravine. The first Black Shield file ran low. Behind came men in stolen Roman equipment, shouting our signals and names. Gaius held the gate lane. Rufus sent the Central Reserve south in two groups, not one. Tiro marched the signum between them. The west defenders remained at their silent wall. Hanno took command there under Rufus's order. Secundus stayed locked with the prisoners. Livia guarded the real evidence beside Galen's wounded. The enemy reached the wall at 3 points. One ladder caught beneath the parapet. Defenders shoved. A second bridged directly to a snowbank left by the wind. 6 men crossed before stones broke its center. The third force dragged the wounded Roman as cover, though the arrow remained in his back. Tiro planted the signum at the base of the south stair. "You do not move from there," I said. "I know. If the wall falls, I move when Rufus orders the line, not when you become afraid for me." He no longer needed protection phrased as friendship. I went up. The parapet was ice, blood, and broken arrows. Gaius fought near the gate tower with a short spear. Cassian should have been under treatment. Instead, he stood at the stair landing, shield braced, directing replacements because walking farther would reopen both leg wounds. "Left snowbank," he called. "They are feeding one at a time. Do not push the first off. Use him to stop the second." The first climber reached the wall with a long oval shield. I caught its upper rim. He expected a pull and drove forward. I yielded, turned only enough to wedge his shield between parapet posts, and trapped him sideways. The second climber crashed into his back. A Roman beside me struck the second man's helmet. The first dropped his shield and came over with a knife. Battle-ready guidance ended when the shield left his hand. Ordinary drill continued. I blocked the knife with my wrapped wrist behind the scutum boss, cut his thigh, and drove him into the snow inside the wall. He crawled for his weapon. A recruit named Naso kicked it away, the same recruit who had taught me not to follow a dropped shield. We pinned him and he yielded under the knife, but before bonds closed, a dying climber on the parapet above drove a short spear down through his neck. Naso pulled the shaft free. The man did not rise. We left his body on the inner snow with the other dead of the wall, rather than enter him among the living prisoners. Farther along, a broad man climbed carrying no shield. He wore leather loops across both arms and threw them over defenders' necks. One loop caught Gaius. The man pulled the tribune against the parapet and used him as a bridge onto the wall. I crossed toward them. An arrow struck my shield. Another grazed the healed upper arm scar. The third release was visible from the ravine. Arrow step offered left, but the paving there had a fallen soldier. I stayed behind wood. The shaft buried itself near my eye. The loop fighter dragged Gaius toward the outer edge. Lock break might open the rope if I reached the correct hand. Shield hook had no shield to catch. Cassian's winter drill had included doors, rails, shovels, and poles carrying weight. I caught the taut rope with my rim. The fighter had planted both feet to pull. Gaius's body loaded the line. I stepped beside the rope, turned it over the parapet post, and changed the direction of force. The man's own pull drove his shoulder into stone. Gaius dropped inside the wall. The fighter released one loop and drew a hooked knife with the other hand. Naso struck his elbow. I turned the remaining rope, pinned the knife arm against the post, and kicked his forward knee. Gaius rose and drove his spear butt into the man's ribs. He fell inside alive. He continued fighting beneath two defenders, cutting Naso's calf and nearly reaching poison in his belt. I trapped the wrist only after Gaius pinned the shoulder. Lock break opened the grip. Naso tore the poison away. 3 of us bound him. Experience gained, 1,300. Level 11 reached. Experience 0 of 4,200. 1 free stat point available. I chose Intelligence. Strength 11, Endurance 13, Agility 12, Vitality 13, Intelligence 15. The world did not slow. It arranged itself a little more clearly. 3 enemy efforts had depended on the same thing, making us turn away from a quieter front. West had gone silent. Hanno had only 12 men added to its exhausted defenders. The digging beneath the tower might have stopped because the passage was ready. The south assault was loud enough to keep every eye. I found Rufus below the stair. West is the breach. He asked why. South force committed after false reserve call. They need us here. North fire failed. Internal team failed. West digging stopped without withdrawal horns. If the culvert opens beneath the tower, they reach the granary road behind Hanno. Gaius heard while binding his bruised throat, or West is quiet because we defeated it. Then 12 men shifted there cost nothing. If I am right, delay costs the granary and rear of this wall. Rufus looked at Tiro. Can South read the standard from the west turn? Tiro measured roofs and smoke. From the granary corner, both gates can see the wreath, not the lower discs. Then carry it there. Flaccus signals beside him. Varro takes 8 central men west. I keep south. Cassian remains at this stair. Gaius holds the upper wall. He decided and issued. I ran west with 8 men. Vitality 13 did not make the reopened wrist sound. Intelligence 15 did not show hidden enemies. We followed a route practiced blindfolded, passed beneath the signum at the granary corner, and heard timber break under the west tower. The culvert opened upward through the floor of the guardroom. Hanno had placed shields around it. 3 boar fighters lay dead or bound, more pushed from below. The ram outside had hidden the sound of digging until the tunnel reached old timber. When the ram stopped, the tunnel team attacked. The opening was too narrow for 2 shields side by side. Hanno held it with a boat hook, dragging weapons up before men could climb. Blood covered one sleeve. His 12 reinforcements had become 7 standing. A hand seized the hook and pulled him toward the hole. I caught the shaft with my shield rim. Pressure came from below, unseen. Shield hook could read the object, not the man. I turned the shaft against the culvert edge, pinning the hidden grip. Hanno released, drew his sword, and cut the hand when it appeared. The attacker let go. We recovered the hook. Oil? A soldier asked. No, Hanno and I said together. Burning the culvert could smoke our own tower, weaken support timbers, and kill men without closing the passage. Engineers brought stones from a dismantled oven. We needed time to fill the hole. The enemy below understood. A shield rose flat beneath the opening, making a moving roof, spears thrust around it. One caught a defender in the groin, another drove Hanno back. I hooked the rising shield at its far edge and pulled sideways. Strength below resisted. My wrist screamed. 2 legionaries took my harness and hauled with me. We turned the shield vertical in the hole. Hanno's boat hook caught its hand grip. Engineers dropped the first oven stone beside it. The attacker released. The shield remained wedged, blocking half the entrance. A spear came through the other half. I saw the thrust and used one short arrow step on dry tower boards. The point passed. Naso, limping from his calf cut but stubbornly with the reserve, stamped the shaft against the floor. Hanno hooked it away. Stone followed stone. Enemy axes struck supports from below. The floor sagged. Our defenders withdrew one pace at a time while engineers filled the mouth. A boar fighter squeezed between shield and stone, helmet scraping timber. He seized an engineer's ankle. Lockbreak could not reach into the hole. I struck his forearm. Hanno pinned the hand with his hook. The engineer kicked free. We rolled the oven's curved crown stone into the gap. It trapped the fighter below the shoulders. He kept fighting, trying to cut his own armor loose. Hanno offered surrender. The man spat and pushed upward until the stone crushed breath from him. Finally, he dropped the knife. We hauled him out and bound him. When the last gap closed, engineers drove stakes through the stone pile into the culvert walls. The floor stopped moving. Outside, boar horns gave 3 falling notes. The ram withdrew from the west gate. Through murder holes, we saw shields carry wounded into the trees. No Roman pursuit followed. South horns answered a moment later. The ladder force disengaged under arrows, taking those it could. Men abandoned the bridges across the ditch and ran for the ravine. Rufus forbade pursuit there too. The camp held every gate. Fire no longer climbed the north roofs. The drain trap remained ours. The prison store had never opened. The granaries stood. The real evidence chest retained all 3 seals, but the loose signaller had not been found. A single figure moved near Armin's standard in the central yard. Tiro saw him first. The signaller wore Galen's grey assistant cloak. He had spent the battle among wounded men, where blood excused haste and every door opened for medicine. His name was Seram. He had helped carry the evidence chest into the infirmary cellar. He knew its precise room. He had lit the bathhouse smoke, passed the new horn sequence through the north postern on a wax shaving, and marked the drain trap for Varin. Now he stood beneath the boar standard with a fire pot. Tiro's signum was planted at the granary corner, 30 paces away. Rufus remained south. I was coming from west with 8 exhausted men. Seran could have burned the enemy challenge, the copied unit marks, or himself. Instead, he pulled the nailed centurion's crest aside. A narrow packet was hidden inside the helmet. Livia had recorded every nail and plate, but had not removed them. The armor remained enemy evidence under guard. Seran had been one of the infirmary assistants permitted near the yard because wounded guards needed treatment. He had waited for every post to empty. He tore the packet free and ran toward the north lane. Tiro did not chase. He planted his feet beside the Roman signum and shouted direction. North lane, grey cloak, packet in right hand. Flaccus sounded visible fugitive. Soldiers farther north turned before Seran reached them. He threw the fire pot. Flames spread across snow in a line, forcing the first pair back. I approached from his west. Seran saw me and put the packet inside his tunic. Then he drew a surgical knife and seized a wounded defender being carried from the wall. The litter bearers stopped. The patient had an arrow through his thigh and could not move. "Clear the north postern," Seran said. "I take him and the packet. Follow and he dies." The postern was barred. White mane survivors might still wait beyond it. Livia came from the infirmary with no weapon. "The packet will not save you," she said. "It saves the names you have not found. Then you should not have shown it." His knife pressed deeper beneath the wounded man's jaw. I could see Seran. Eagle sight might show a level, stats, injuries, mastered skills. It would not tell whether his hand would cut. Purple shadow already crossed the firelit snow. I did not open it. The wounded soldier spoke through clenched teeth. "My name is Laco. Stop calling me him." Seran glanced down. Laco seized the knife wrist with both hands. The litter bearers dropped the rear poles and drove forward. Seran lost balance. I crossed the remaining ground. Lockbreak offered the captured wrist because Laco had created contact and position. I trapped the thumb, turned beneath the elbow, and took the knife. Seran still had his left hand. He pulled the packet and tried to throw it into flame. Tiro lowered the signum without leaving its socket. The long pole swept the packet from Seran's hand in mid-cast. It landed on clean snow beyond the fire. Livia covered it with her cloak. Seran struck me in the injured wrist and broke away. He ran toward the boar standard, perhaps seeking another hidden blade. I caught his assistant cloak with my shield rim. Cloth tore. Battle-ready guidance did not pretend cloth was a shield, but the turn changed his shoulders enough for Laco's litter-bearer to tackle his legs. He fell beside the black pole. Seran reached up and ripped one nailed belt plate free. A thin spike had been fixed behind it. He stabbed the bearer through the forearm. I struck his wrist with the scutum boss. Tiro's pole pinned the spike hand to snow. Flaccus and 2 soldiers bound him. He remained alive. Livia opened the packet under witnesses in headquarters after the fire was extinguished. Inside were strips of thin hide covered in tiny Roman writing. One listed the unit marks on the nailed armor and the locations where those patrols had been taken. One gave Old Fort drain measurements. One named Caldus as receiver for winter door payments. A third contained only account symbols and a repeated letter, S. Gaius pointed at it. Septum. Too convenient even for my enemies. Livia agreed. It could mean septum, south, silver, store, or a name we have not met. We record the mark, not the answer. Seran claimed Caldus had placed the packet inside the armor before the unmanned boat was released. That meant Caldus had been close enough to Armin's confederation to handle the challenge sent after the ferry. He also claimed the packet was meant for him, not brought into the fort by mistake. The boar standard had been a dead drop placed in our yard under our own guard. "Why wait?" Rufus asked. "Livia copied the nails," Seran said. "I thought she would strip it. Then Varro lay in the infirmary and guards watched everything. I needed the assault. The armor had done more than frighten us. It carried instructions to the people already inside." Cassian sat while Galen stitched the cut above his sound knee. He looked at the hidden spike, then at Tiro. "You kept our pole and used theirs," he said. Tiro's face was grey with exhaustion. "Standards do not run. No, they reach farther. We reconciled the night before dawn. The drain attackers numbered 8. 5 stopped in the plunge trap, 1 dead and 4 captured. 3 crossed, with 1 dead in headquarters, the false officer captured, and the tablet carrier captured north. The south wall opening wave put 7 men fully inside before the later ladder assault. 3 were prisoners, the man who jumped first, the spearman, and Cassian's fallen opponent. 2 others lay dead on the parapet, and 2 had been thrown back outside. Ragnan and 2 Axe team fighters were captured during the sally. Later wall fighting left the loop fighter captured. The shield-bearing climber who briefly yielded on the inner snow died of a parapet spear before bonds closed and was counted among the dead, not the living prisoners. Others withdrew or were carried away outside, counted by each wall captain. The West Culvert team left 3 captives in our hands, including the man trapped beneath the crown stone, and 6 dead within reach of the opening. The rest withdrew through the tunnel. Secundus opened a separate tablet for the 6 Roman military or contracted detainees pending review: Minnoc, Carbo, Dento, the pay clerk, Varin, and Seran. All 6 were alive in separate bonds. Our dead numbered 17 by sunrise. 53 were wounded badly enough to leave duty. 2 civilians suffered burns at the North Barracks. Pavo's scalp cut and Laco's arrow wound were serious but survivable. Cassian had a stitched cut above the knee on his sound leg and rope bruising at the throat. The old wound behind the other knee remained closed. Hanno's scalp needed 6 stitches. Gaius's neck was bruised. Tiro had blistered palms and no new wound. Custody changed under witnesses. The prior stone store register remained 30 hostile captives, 3 Roman detainees, and Vibius throughout the breach. None escaped, died, or changed category. Secundus added 16 newly captured northern attackers, 6 from the drain, the initial jumper, the attacker with the spear, and the climber Cassian felled. Ragni with 2 Axe Team fighters, the later Loop fighter, and 3 from the West Culvert. He also added the 6 detainees on the new internal collaborator tablet, where Carbo's name appeared. The false officer and Seran were kept apart. Total registered custody became 46 hostile captives, 9 Roman or contracted detainees, and Vibius, 56 people. Odo and Beran remained separately treated outside that count. Enemy wounded too unstable for the stone store were treated under guard and entered among the 16. Livia checked the evidence. Main chest under 3 seals, present in the infirmary cellar. First copy uphill intact, second copy already south, existing contents unchanged, added, supply theft tablets and creditor links, Minux keys and confession, red cloak thread, Carbo, Dento, the clerk, Varin and Seran statements, the false officer's equipment, the recovered packet and hidden spike, wall and custody counts. Caldus remained missing, but the packet placed him near Armin's challenge and inside the winter door payments. The unknown Roman authorizer behind the earlier informant channel remained unresolved. Gaius requested that Dento's accusation against him be copied in full. Livia looked at him. It says your steward promised payment in your name. Then copy that. Also copy that I captured Dento alive after he attacked me, held the south wall, obeyed withdrawal, and assisted in Ragnan's defeat. He was building his defense before blood dried. She copied it because truth included useful facts even when they helped him. By full morning, scouts confirmed the enemy had withdrawn beyond the near ridges. Engineers sealed the west culvert with stone and flooded clay. The old bath drain was collapsed beyond the wall after every body and weapon was removed. Snow was dug from the entire south ditch down to frozen earth. Gates remained barred until 2 mounted patrols completed separate circuits and returned with matching reports. The fort had survived the night breach. The winter assault was over. Only then did Rufus order Armin's standard dismantled under witnesses. Each Roman armor piece was cleaned, its mark copied again, and placed for return to surviving units or families. The black pole was split for firewood. The silver boar went into the evidence chest. Marcellus's damaged signum remained standing. No one promoted me at sunrise. First came burial details, then wall repairs, ration issue, prisoner treatment, weapon count, guard relief, and sleep assigned by sections so exhaustion did not open what axes had failed to break. The barley bread was smaller than before. It tasted better because we ate it inside standing walls. Galen examined me after threatening to resign from Rome and medicine in equal measure. The healed hip closure had not reopened, though the scar was scraped and inflamed. My wrist ligaments were strained again without apparent break. The rib bruises had nearly healed before the night. Shield impacts renewed soreness, but no clear fracture. The upper arm scar had a shallow arrow crease beside it. My eye had no fresh bleeding. Purple shadow remained low in the left field. He ordered 3 days without shield impact, a wrist wrap, sleep, and continued restraint with sight. Ordinary healing got you here, he said. Ordinary stupidity can still take you back. Cassian occupied the next bench while Galen stitched him. Put that on a standard. Rufus began the command review that afternoon. The fort commander sat at the center. Gaius attended as tribune. Livia served as evidence officer. Secundus brought custody and guard tablets. wall captains, engineers, Galen, Sava, Mara, Prisca, Hanno, Flaccus, Tiro, Cassian, and 6 soldiers chosen from different cohorts gave accounts. I waited outside until called. The review lasted through one lamp and into the next. They tested every decision that carried my name, dividing the bathhouse force when climbers appeared, remaining at the south wall under Rufus's order while Hanno fought the drain team, recommending sequential internal locks, reading the quiet west front and shifting 8 men, catching the axe haft outside the gate after Gaius ignored the first withdrawal call. Rufus named where I had acted within orders and where I had risked the line. Cassian criticized my first step toward him when he fell. Tiro criticized my instinct to tell him when to move the standard after Rufus had already defined it. Hanno said the 8 men reached west before the culvert widened because the recommendation had been timely. Gaius said Varro preserved my life outside the gate and did not use the debt to claim authority over me. He also offered a sound west wall inference. His acting command remains politically irregular. That was praise sharpened for later use. Livia presented the supply findings separately. The commander confirmed Gaius's removal from stores and contracts, censure for negligent seals, and pending restitution claim. Copies would go south. Criminal judgment waited on civil authority and the search for Caldus and the steward. Gaius retained tribune rank and tactical eligibility. "You survive well," I told him during a pause. "So do you," he said. "People have begun calling yours a miracle. Mine at least has family precedent." He looked toward the closed review door. "When Rome asks who commanded last night, what will you say? Rufus. And when they ask whose recommendations moved men, the witnesses can answer. Rome dislikes answers it cannot place beneath a title." He walked away before I understood whether it was warning or threat. At dusk, the commander called the formation. We assembled in the central yard. North roofs stood patched with raw timber. The south gate carried new braces. Snow around the boar's former place was black from its burned pole. Marcellus's signum stood before the surviving mixed detachment. Tiro bore it alone. Flaccus held the horn at his right. Rufus read the breach disposition first. He named the dead. He named civilian work, engineer repairs, Livia's inventory, Secundus's custody defense, Hanno's culvert hold, Gaius's south wall action, Cassian's drill, Flaccus's signals, and Tiro's standard. Then the commander spoke. Lucius Varro was appointed acting optio under Centurion Rufus after the Iron Ferry. During the completed winter emergency, he carried orders, made tested recommendations, maintained assigned posts, and contributed materially to the defense. The review finds breaches of no lawful order during the night action. Prior medical disobedience at the ferry remains in his record. His authority before this hour was provisional. Snow began, light enough to melt on helmets. The winter assault is resolved. The walls, stores, custody, and command have been reconciled. On Rufus's recommendation and under my field authority, Lucius Varro is appointed centurion of the depleted mixed century formed from the ferry detachment and surviving fragments. The appointment is formal within this army and subject to confirmation by higher command. He will answer to this fort commander and carry no authority beyond assigned troops and orders. Rufus held out a vine staff. It was not his. Fresh wood showed where engineers had cut it from a stored bundle and shaped the grip. A centurion's staff could punish, it could point, it could become a symbol men obeyed after the hand holding it forgot why. I took it. The weight was less than a scutum and more difficult to place. Rufus did not salute me as an equal. He leaned close enough that only I heard. "Your first duty is to discover how often you are wrong before men die of it." Cassian heard anyway. "I can assist." The formation laughed, tired and uneven. I faced Tiro, standard bearer. He met my eyes without the old flinch. Centurion. The word frightened me more from him than from the commander. I opened the system panel without sight. Lucius Varro, level 11. Experience 0 of 4,200. Strength 11. Endurance 13. agility 12, vitality 13, intelligence 15, skill echoes, shield hook, battle ready, arrow step, novice, lock break, novice, echo slots 3 of 3, work resumed. Tiro carried the signum to the rebuilt south gate. Cassian reorganized drill from a stool, while Galen watched him with murder in his face. Livia sealed Gaius's supply case beside the separate Armin payment evidence. Secundus fed 56 registered people under guard and kept Odo and Beran on their separate medical count. Sava measured barley. Mara assigned roof space to the burned-out families. Hanno slept with the boat hook beneath his cot. For 3 days, no enemy horn sounded. On the 4th, the sky clouded, and a courier reached the west gate under a white Roman cloak. He carried no weapon. His horse had lost a shoe. 2 scouts met him between ditch and road, searched him, and brought his sealed tube inside. The outer seal belonged to provincial command. The inner order bore Rome's mark. The fort commander read it once. Rufus read it next. Gaius watched both men and gave nothing away. Livia stood beside the evidence chest with her hands still. The order recalled Lucius Varro to Rome. Charges accompanied it. Practice of unlawful sorcery within a Roman force, usurpation of military command without proper commission, corruption of soldiers through supernatural promises, and responsibility for deaths incurred under illegal orders. I was to travel under guard when roads opened, bringing all records concerning the Eagle system and the Iron Ferry Command. My formal appointment had existed for 4 days. The accusation had begun its journey before I received it. "Who sent the first report?" I asked. The commander turned the order. The copy named no informant. Gaius looked toward the place where Armin's armor had stood. "Rome has heard that iron did not hold you." Livia touched the sealed supply case. "Rome has heard someone's version." Rufus handed me the recall. Beyond the wall, snow began filling the enemy tracks. Inside it, Tiro planted our damaged standard beside the gate, and the men of my new century looked to me for an order I was legally forbidden to give anywhere else. I had survived Armin's winter breach. Now Rome wanted to decide whether surviving it was a crime.